Hey everybody, welcome to Geeksvana Live. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. For those of you who are watching live, if I'm a little bit disconnected with the chat this evening, I apologize, but we actually didn't change the latency. So we're coming out at normal latency. So I think there's about a 30-second gap between me speaking and it reaching you guys, which is quite funny actually. It's one of the first times I've streamed that way. So we'll see if I can keep up with the chat or keep behind with the chat. But welcome in. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you're all doing extremely well. It is pouring with rain here in the UK, so there's not been much flying done today. So wherever you are in the world, I hope you've had the opportunity to get out and do some flying so far this week. We've got better weather for flying this weekend, which I'm really looking forward to. So tonight, we're going to be talking about what is certainly some pioneering drone tactics being deployed by Devon and Cornwall, who are in the southwest of the UK police, and their their excellent drone unit down there. But I also want to have a wider conversation once we've spoken about that as well, about drone use by police and I suppose therefore the state. So to join the conversation on this particular topic, do tag at Geeksvana in the chat and we'll feature your messages very soon. If you're watching the replay, go down, please do comment. We do read all the comments, etc. So I do appreciate it. And if you're one of the awesome people that have joined us live at a slightly earlier time, just to throw you all off this evening, as well as there being a latency change, if you could hit that like button nice and early, I would really appreciate it. It really does help the video and the channel, and it makes me happy. Do you want to make me happy? Hit the like button. There's also another button next to it, but that's hidden these days for some bizarre reason. So first up, let's focus on the Devon and Cornwall initiative that's happening, and we're going to have a very quick look at a video that they've released, have a look at the press release on it, get some thoughts and opinions on that, and then talk about the wider topic as well. As this particular initiative has had differing responses on social media so far, and I thought it was an interesting talking point. But we'll start with this short video. Okay, so that is the video that was released as part of the publicity for the initiative, and I just want to talk through very quickly part of the press release that was sent out. I'm going to bring the full press release up as it is a public document. So police pioneer drone tactic to catch dangerous drivers in Devon and Cornwall. So we can get some of the detail from the horse's mouth, as it were. Devon and Cornwall police are using drones to help detect driving offences on high harm routes throughout the region as part of a pioneering new project. The force's drone unit is linking up with the roads policing team, road casualty reduction officers, and speed detection officers to target unsafe or irresponsible driving and riding. The operation, launched today as part of the National Motorcycle Safety Week, which was earlier this month, will have a particular focus on motorcyclists after a spate of collisions in 2022, which resulted in the death or serious injury of more than 200 riders across Devon and Cornwall. For those of you watching that don't know, Devon and Cornwall is a particularly scenic part of the country, so very, very popular with bikers, and it's a particular area where I can see the road safety from that aspect would be something that would need to be focused on. Operating in back to the release, operating in identified by intelligence, the drones will help calculate vehicle speeds live using fixed points on the highway. They will also record live video of all incidents, meaning any dangerous or inappropriate driving will be caught on camera. When a vehicle is detected breaking the law, details will be relayed to officers on the ground, which will allow police to check the MOT, tax and insurance status of the motorbike and whether it is reported as stolen. MOT, tax, insurance, etc. Obviously for the people in the States, tags and that kind of thing, basically. Nearby, Speed detection officers will then use calibrated labour cameras to accurately record the speed of the vehicle before the driver or rider is pulled over by the police road casualty reduction officers. Depending on the offence detected, the offending motorcyclist will be given words of advice, referred on a specific training course, or issued with a fine and penalty points. In more serious cases, riders will be reported to court for prosecution or arrested on the spot. Chief Inspector Ben Asprey is head of roads policing at Devon and Cornwall Police, and also part of the Vision Zero Southwest Road Safety Partnership's Motorcycle Task Group. He said, sadly, last year was a terrible year for serious and fatal collisions involving motorcyclists. In 2022, 16 motorcyclists were killed. That is tragic. On Devon and Cornwall's roads, the highest figure in the past 5 years. A further 187 were also left seriously injured. Despite motorcyclists making up less than 1% of overall traffic, they account for roughly a third of all serious fatal collisions in our area. But it's important to remember that these aren't just numbers. These are people's loved ones, parents, sons, daughters, friends, and partners, and we are determined to drive those numbers down. Speed and inappropriate riding have been major contributing factors in the motorcycle collisions that we've attended. Travelling too fast gives you less time to react and dramatically increases their risk of being fatally or seriously injured. Many of these serious collisions have not involved any other road users, meaning inappropriate riding and motorcyclist error is also a major factor. Now, they also have an explanation here which is Inspector Colin Harper of Devon and Cornwall Police's drone team explains why the use of drones is a bit of a game changer in this project. He said, this innovative use of drones will give us early warning of any offences and allow us to be far more targeted in our approach on the ground. We will be deploying this technology on roads where we know motorbikes are travelling too fast, and also around dates and locations where motorcycle events are scheduled to take place. This technology can and will be used to detect speeding and dangerous driving in all vehicles on our roads. At present, our focus is on motorcyclists who are at highest risk according to our data, particularly at this time of year when more riders are starting to venture out again after the winter, which of course is going to be a very popular thing. Now, Vision Zero Southwest has made tackling motorcycle collisions in 2023 a priority, with many more biker targeted activities planned. Now, as you can see from the figures here, it is something which is clearly an ongoing issue, and something which is obviously something which they're looking to do. Lots of people involved in this particular the Vision Zero initiative, all the way from the council through to fire and rescue services, etc. And I would say we can safely say very many of the agencies that are going to be impacted by that kind of activity, basically. So it's an interesting one, isn't it? So to me, the use of drones by Devon and Cornwall is something which makes complete sense in this type of activity. Just personally, I'm going to come to the chat and see how you all feel about it as well. In particular, the drone unit in particular has always been a bit of a trailblazer. The Devon and Cornwall unit was actually one of the first ones started by Andrew Hamilton many years ago. They are highly professional. I've chatted with them a lot on social media, especially Tom and James, etc. And the team there are very much focused on the drones for good side of things, and really trying to carry out some very important work. And to me, if we have to say there is a line in terms of where drones are used in this type of situation, and where and should and shouldn't be used, I think this is firmly on the right side of the line. Interestingly, though, some of the response from the public and the drone community, responses to social media posts and elsewhere where this has been posted, and including the video, etc., have actually been not necessarily negative, but showing some concern about the use of camera drones in this way, and more sort of widely in terms of actually broaching the topic of how the public are surveilled by drones. Now, we're all used to cameras in our everyday life, and this is the very much the other side of the coin in terms of what us drone users will tell the public. There's lots of cameras out there. London, for instance, where I am or close to, is one of the most heavily covered cities in the world in terms of CCTV and camera use. So it's all there, frankly. I do think, however, that it's something we need to look at and perhaps hear more about how the use of drones are actually being used by the state, be that police or other agencies, and how that's actually monitored, and how the decision process is there in terms of where drones, because they do offer a unique surveillance capability, especially drones like the DJI M30 and that type of thing, which can be from, you know, a good couple of miles away, can zoom right in and see exactly what you're doing, etc. Now, there is always the argument, you know, if you're not doing anything wrong, then there's nothing to hide. I have a lot of sympathy with that, but I also don't know whether or not there I believe there is some kind of line at some point. I don't know where that is. I don't think I'm the person to set that line. It'll be interesting to hear what you, the community, think. So again, if you're watching this on the replay, do have a look, and add the video we played at the beginning, and also let me know your thoughts in the comments below, because I'd be really interested to know. Now, there's obviously all sorts of data protection and very high standards in terms of public agencies handling data. So the data itself, once captured, I'm not too concerned about. And certainly the police, how they handle data and that type of thing, there's all sorts of standards which they have to adhere to. But personally, I do not think we're there with this type of initiative, as I was saying. But your vehicle being on camera for enforcement's nothing new, but we do need to look at perhaps where the line might actually be that now or in the future. It's going to be an interesting one to see. So coming to the chat to have a look at some of the people's comments here. Let me just zoom up to the beginning here. And yes, One Visionaire was talking about the fact that we're coming across to Tennessee to Minefield in August, and yeah, we will try and work out some kind of merch for that one for certainly. John Burns is asking, I wonder how the police drone operator maintains VLOS whilst targeting motorists on the controller screen. Yeah, often you'll find with deployments of this type, again, I'm not talking on behalf of, but just from my experience and having spoken to drone units, having, you know, some experience of that side of things, that there will be multiple people. So this kind of initiative, you're talking about a drone pilot, there will be somebody else from the drone unit there as well, and obviously they are in radio contact with the police officers holding the actual speed guns, etc., and all that kind of thing. Because actually the way that it was working is that they are then taken once the police officer with the laser gun pulls them over. If it's a chat or whatever, they're then sent on to the car park, basically, or the area where they can show them the video footage and talk through some of the actions and that type of thing. But visual line of sight is something which is taken very seriously by police drone operators. There are different forces have different standards in terms of some forces say it must be a threat of life or danger to life to breach VLOS. But yes, but certainly in this kind of operation, I would expect them to maintain it, but also in fact maintain it from the point of view that with the zoom on the M30, they shouldn't really need it. Maltese, Falcon, hi, good to see you. It's great to see many of our members in the chat. Thank you very much for supporting the channel in such a direct way. I really do appreciate it. Is it not more to monitor RTAs real time rather than catching speeders? Yeah, it will be combined. There will obviously be combined there, and the data, as explained in the press release, is obviously being backed up by the fact that someone is then there with the laser guided a device to actually capture their speed forensically for any kind of prosecution or warning that might happen, basically. Mr. Delaney, there is a precedent to using drones to strafe dog walkers. So yeah, be very concerned, and that's an interesting one actually, because that was obviously during the times of COVID, and there was obviously that very famous clip that we saw on the news when we were all sat at home, where drones were actually used to have a look at dog walkers who were out walking their dogs. Perhaps I can't even remember whether the context was that they were breaching at the time or not, whether they're breaching COVID regulations or COVID rules at the time. But yes, certainly that really did seem to hit a similar type of marker, but perhaps a little bit more beyond that. And there's been other operations where I've seen some different feedback, such as drone units supporting ASBO efforts and that type of thing, and actually having surveillance in an area for quite some time. And some people felt concerned about that. So I think it's just something that we need to, I suppose, really keep an eye on. And we need to start seeing, are there lines, and if there are, where they are, basically. Just skipping on here. Paul, good afternoon, sir. Hope you're well. Good morning if it's morning there. Cool Cat saying, it's okay, I'm going to write any questions 30 seconds faster than I would normally. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. Talking, of course, about the fact that we're 30 seconds latency to what the live chat is seeing. And actually, I'm not sure if my chat behind is going at a slightly different rate. It'll be anyway, that's a whole other geeky YouTube thing. XJet, hi Bruce, good to see you. Hope you're well, sir. The cops tried to use helicopters and light aircraft for catching speeders here in New Zealand, but gave up after a few short months. Yeah, and I think where this works, where this has, in operational terms, where this has some value in terms of getting to the right people. So your audience being that motorcyclist who needs protecting, really from themselves, you could argue. Is that obviously the M30, because of the type of landscape we're talking about here, we're not talking about an urban landscape. So the drone, when it's up, will be able to see for a good few miles around, and we'll be able to identify, motorbikes coming across white lines, that type of thing, and also want the bikes using static points that seem to be traveling at a far greater speed than the speed limit, and therefore give that intelligence on to the officers that are actually ahead of the game, as it were, so they know what's coming, they know what to target. So I think it's an interesting duality there, which perhaps will work better. I can see the issues with helicopters and actually full fixed wing aircraft, certainly. Legwork, hi Legwork, Bill, hope you're well, sir. I wonder about the enforcement of speeding using drones, as they're not calibrated to record or display the speed of objects. Absolutely, and I know they're using the fixed point technology, which does help you and is arguably accurate on the M30s, but certainly it'll be interesting in terms of the legal side. But of course, as you probably heard from the press release that I then read out, that it's actually something which is being backed up by the men on the ground, as it were. Cool Cat, in France, speed cameras had to compete with angle grinders, and I'm happy to say the angle grinders won. Yes, there was a bit of a revolution there, wasn't there, for speed cameras? And John Burns asking if you can buy a Geeksvana shirt, or even better, be given one by Sean. We might do a giveaway for some shirts. We did, our last big shirt drive was actually around 5,000 subscribers, so that was a long time ago, where we did a merch drop. We are thinking of doing that again, but bear with us. I've actually withdrawn our most recent merch line because we're using one of the large companies where you can actually buy merch directly below each of our videos, but the quality was naff, basically, and I'd much rather come back to the quality from our produced chap locally here. And Xjet saying, just put speed bumps on all UK roads. Oh, hang on, they're using potholes to achieve the same result. Yeah, we do have a bit of a pothole issue, certainly. Nick Harborn, hi Nick, hope you're well, sir. I live in North Devon, and you should be more worried about the holes in the road than the speeding, to be honest. There we go, two people talking about potholes there. Legwork, it seems like a bit of a gimmick to me, as AMPR cameras and radar are all they need to achieve the same goal. Yeah, there is obviously, anything that has a publicity element to it, a PR element to it. I'm talking about it right now, and perhaps other motorcyclists in that area and other parts of the country and world will think about this next time they're riding and that type of thing. So certainly, whether it's a gimmick or not, I'm not sure, but certainly there is a very good PR angle to this and publicity angle. I'd agree with that. Maltese Falcon, there will be one in the whole Shire, and they will use the fear that there is a drone around any time, so don't transgress traffic laws. You don't know when we'll be around with our cop drone. Yeah, absolutely. There is a very sort of sizable deterrent from that point of view. And Bruce saying taser drone, yes, that was a very short-lived project, wasn't it, so far? And also, Bruce, bringing it back to drones, of course, as well, from motorcycles, that remote ID on those motorcycles would solve the problem. Well, they do have number plates, I suppose, Bruce, don't they? But you can't necessarily track them live, I suppose. Trevor Fuss, hi, Trevor, good to see you. He says it's a great idea. While drones are new, using aircraft to driving offences has been around since 1982 here in Australia, so another country that has used aircraft for that. And that's interesting because, of course, Australia is such a huge country, such a huge expanse. So it's again, I can see the reason that they would use full aircraft for that as well. The Maltese Falcon is the next headline will be RTA caused by police Matrice drone falling from the sky. Well, they tend to be fairly reliable, thankfully. Paul Wedgenbig, hi Paul, one of our US viewers, good to see you. When we were kids, we used to try and toss sticks through each other's bike spokes while we were riding, I guess this wouldn't be a good idea here. Yeah, it might not work in terms of deterrent or actually dealing with the problem. Perhaps pulling them over and having a quiet chat would be better. Mark, hi, good to see you, Mark. Mark R. White. Having spent 10 years working for Greater Manchester Transportation Unit, doing all the data analysis on speeds and accidents to decide whether or not a site is a good speed camera. Oh, crikey. That's, sounds like an interesting job there, Mark, for sure. And yes, Tazzy's saying the only people that will moan are those getting caught. And XJet, yeah, indeed. And it is one of those things where, you know, it's no, as you say, no one likes to be the person getting caught. And, you know, in general terms, I support, in 100% terms, I support this initiative. I think it's actually quite a great idea. But I think that it's also something that, you know, as the use of drones progresses and as we evolve how the state is going to use drones, then I think we need to have a little pause for thought about how they're being used and how the decisions to deploy them, etc., are being made as well. Which is, but again, I agree with you. This particular initiative is excellent. XJet, the only place I ever felt safe riding a motorcycle was on a motorcycle track. Roads are way too dangerous. Yeah, bikes, yeah, are something which scare me personally. Paul Taylor, hi Paul, good to see you. It always starts somewhere. Give it to the end of this decade and most of the drones operated by authorities will be AI operated. Well, it's interesting you say that actually, Paul, because that has actually already started happening over in Hong Kong. We did a story last year where basically, I think it actually might have even been the year before. I'm getting old. Time is all starting to blur into one. It was the local police in Hong Kong were actually using automated drones to, or semi-automated drones to basically patrol industrial units and industrial estates which were closed due to COVID. And basically they had a remote unit, so they had a sort of trailer set up somewhere which was a command center, and one operator would be viewing 3 or 4 different drones which were flying automated paths and would obviously therefore the algorithm etc would prop up when they see people, and it would then investigate, or he could or they could intercede if there was some kind of problem with the drone. Now that's already an automated use, isn't it? Which obviously is one that's in, especially in COVID times, was obviously reducing the amount of officers needing to be out on the street and at risk themselves, etc. So it's good. But yeah, I mean the AI operated side of things, the automated, as you say, where something starts to where something goes can sometimes be sometimes not paying attention, frankly, and we can get there far too quickly. John Burns says Derbyshire police were using drones during lockdown to track people out walking in the Peak District, as we were saying. XJet saying, yes, indeed, London is the most heavily surveilled cities in the world, but only when AB is in town. AB. I'm not getting the reference to the initials, and I feel like that's going to be. I'm going to feel dumb in a minute when you do put it in the chat 30 seconds later. They can. Mark says they can also observe with drones, as cameras are not DFT approved for using as speed cameras. Yeah, indeed, absolutely. Tazzy, I support police use of drones as long as hobbyist regs are not over restricted. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Yes, indeed. And of course, you know, police drones are generally operated under operational authorizations from the CAA, so they very much do stick to the same rules. If anything, actually tighter rules, because they're in the specific category under an operational authorization. You could argue so as well. The Maltese Falcon, I think it's another step too far. Drones policing the streets next. Robocop movies were mental. Yeah, you do think of Robocop and Terminator and other things, don't you, when you think of sort of the whole automated side of things, and how scary that can be. One Vision Aerial, hi Dustin, one of our US viewers. So if a speed radar is mounted to an M30, could it accurately track the speed of a moving object as it's moving itself? Yeah, no, I don't think we're anywhere near that kind of stage in terms of the accuracy, because of course also you'd be restricting yourself in terms of where the drone can be, and these drones will be flown, I'm sure, sort of over a field rather than anywhere near the action, with of course the incredible zoom that's on the DJI M30s. So I don't think that will necessarily be the issue there. But certainly I think that we're a ways off having that. It's all backed up obviously by the chap with the speed gun on the ground. NextJet saying police around the world have special dispensation to fly drones into helicopters. I think that's a specialism of the Canadian police, isn't it, actually? And Paul Taylor, slippery slope to full AI controlled drones. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting actually, because if you do have a look at the gov.uk site, you can see a few of the projects which are being sort of early funded and that type of thing by government, and some of those are actually swarm drones, and some of the potential uses that they're looking into for those swarm drones are things like crowd control. So I don't want to be dystopian or anything, because I'm sure it would only be used by the right people in the right way, but we do need to keep an eye on this technology and see where it goes personally. As Lego was saying, most police forces have OSCs in place that cover VLOS and BVLOS. Well, in actual fact, most police forces actually operate under operational authorizations. The pilots are under GVC. There's like almost every force has their sort of a little bit of enhanced training that they give people above the general GVC, but it's actually generally operational authorizations which they will fly under. There is in the air navigation order, there is the ability for state aircraft to regulate themselves essentially, so they are able to go beyond visual line of sight. But as I say, particular forces will actually have their own particular policies as to far as when that happens. Many of them it will only be if there is a risk to life, basically the reason that they want to take that drone beyond visual line of sight. Trevor, the police just want to play with their avatars better than work anyway. Yeah, indeed. Kavaction, Chark, hi, good to see you. I haven't really paid attention to how they're enforcing speed since I slowed down, or I noticed it was in England when cameras were doing the averaging thing. I was super careful there. Yes, for our US viewers, we have average speed cameras here in the UK. So a stretch of a few miles of road will have several speed cameras along, and there will be signs telling you we are capturing your average speed. So if that's 40 miles an hour, basically, yeah, it will ensure that you are doing, you're not breaking the speed limit as an average over that distance. Basically, it does somewhat make you focus on your speed a little bit more, rather than those that do speed slowing down quickly for the speed camera and speeding off again. One Vision Aerial, that's what I'm curious about. Aerial speed radar versus ground, handheld and altitude distance. It would be how it would be accurate in comparison. Yeah, no, indeed, it certainly wouldn't be in current technology. I mean, going from a drone supporting speed operations as it is in this scenario, going to the drone itself actually capturing that data, and there's an entire process of proving that through the prosecution process and everything else like that, in terms of ensuring that it meets the standards. And we are, I believe, technologically, in terms of drones which are readily available, we're still a little bit a ways on that, but also in terms of the legal process, even getting their heads around how to calibrate and everything else like that, we're a ways off. And yes, I agree with Flying Low there, saying never get a conviction from the drone footage. Indeed. Legwork, top tip, don't wash your Geeksvana shirt at 90 degrees by accident, because then it just becomes a nice black t-shirt. Is that what happened to yours, Legwork? Was that one of the ones I sent you, or was that one that you purchased? I'd be interested to know, actually, because the ones we sent you are slightly better quality, but yes, the 90-degree wash, it does have do read the label on your Geeksvana merch. I would recommend that. I'd probably need to send you another shirt then. And Morty's spoken is actually answering Dustin, as long as the drone is stationary and has a fixed point of reference over a set distance, then definitely, yeah, D&T equals speed. And of course we do have that whole process of when the legal system becomes involved in it, as far as when it would reach their benchmark. Paul Taylor saying Geeksvana, new police enforcement drones coming soon. They will drop bombs onto speeding or dangerous motorists. Yeah, I don't think we're quite there yet, but there we go. And yeah, just one last one there for CJ drone photography. Police will have to stop routinely to eat their Haribo. I do. I enjoy that advert as well. Actually, it's a good one, isn't it? So, an interesting topic tonight. Really, where I sit on it is that I think this initiative from Devon and Cornwall is excellent. I think it's something which is certainly going to, it's got me talking about it as well, the road safety aspects of it, and I'm a drone channel, so it's working. It's getting the message out there. It's very interesting to hear that 1% of road users in Devon and Cornwall are subject to a third of the injuries and deaths, etc. It is something which needs dealing with, and this is an interesting way of engaging both the public, the motorcyclists, etc., and also obviously therefore leading to actually enforcing the law as well, in terms of supporting the crew on the ground there as well. So I think it's an interesting one. But the conversation as these types of initiatives are publicized is starting to turn public wise into, okay, where next, and where does this stop, and whose job is it to do that? And that's something which I think we need to hear a lot more about over the coming weeks and months. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining me this evening. I really do appreciate it. Thank you again for everybody that's come in, especially as it's a slightly earlier time than we normally broadcast at. I've actually got relatives visiting, so that's the reason why we're a little bit earlier this evening. But we'll be back to our normal time slots next week, and we've got a couple of very juicy videos coming up in the edit as well for you. So stay tuned to Geeksvana. Smash that like button before you leave, please, so I can do the YouTuber thing, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. Bye bye.